Now, France has said tonight its military operation in the Central African Republic will begin immediately after the UN Security Council approved a mission to tackle sectarian violence. More than 100 people were killed in new clashes in the country today, with much of the fighting centred on the capital, Bangui. The city was rocked by violent clashes between the mostly Christian supporters of the ousted President Bozizé and mostly Muslim militia of the former rebel leader and now interim President Jotodia. Our chief correspondent Alex Thompson is in Central African Republic, and a warning, his report does contain some distressing images.
Gunfire ringing out across the sky of Bangui, the most deadly day yet in the capital, in a conflict which is taking on all the hallmarks now of a major sectarian meltdown. Members of a Christian militia that support the deposed President Bozizé have been attacking Muslim neighborhoods in the capital, and today killed over 100 people using guns and machetes, though it could be many more. These men, who are the official army of this failed state for now, are the militia supporting the interim president, Jotodia. They're a mostly Muslim mix of locals and fighters from neighbouring countries who took control of the capital months ago. Dozens of bodies have been brought to this mosque in a Muslim district of Bangui. The pictures, in many cases, too gruesome to show. Despite the many deaths, the locals here are calling for an end to the fighting.
We want our Christian brothers to know we want peace. We don't want a war between Muslims and Christians. But look at what they've done to the civilians, not just to the soldiers.
We are Muslims. We are not killers. We are Muslims.
Forces loyal to the interim president are now fighting back, creating a dangerous escalation in the violence. The sooner the French peacekeepers are deployed here, the more likely the violence will be scaled back. Horror in the capital, yet heroism in the bush. In Buar, in the western jungles, Dr. Winifred Kamoyo is scrubbing up. He has to use a kettle. The entire hospital water supply, the well in the garden. A steady head for transport. Earlier he'd prepared the patient, a Muslim man shot in the intestines, in what is increasingly a Muslim-Christian conflict here. But the sterilizer is broken, the operating light is broken, the power supply broken too. And Dr. Kamoyo is a trainee GP, not a surgeon. Now he has to find a bullet in a man's intestines without the benefit of X-ray location. Incision made, he can do little more but look away and feel his way to something hard. Throughout, the patient has just the minimum anesthetic necessary. They can't monitor it, so they estimate the dose. Semi-lucid, he groans in agony throughout, strapped down at the wrists and legs. It took over an hour, but Dr. Kamoyo got his bullet. So the man's relatives wait anxiously outside for news, but you have to say, operating like this means the chances of infection are enormous. That said, rudimentary medical assistance is better than certain death out in the bush. So you may ask, why isn't this hospital overrun with people? The answer to that can be found in one simple word: fear. Gunmen recently attacked this hospital, so African peacekeepers now patrol the grounds, but thousands are in the bush, still far too frightened to come here. Into this chaos, Save the Children is attempting to provide some medical basics.
We're supporting free admissions to this hospital, 20 other health posts in this region as well, making sure that those who desperately need of critical health care are able to come and receive it without having to pay.
So our man emerges from surgery minus bullet. Because of reprisals, we can't name him. That's how it is out here. Drugs in the pharmacy, funded by British taxpayers, give him a fighting chance medically. But politically, militarily, there's no such thing as a safe area of the Central African Republic. Alex Thompson, Channel 4 News in Buar.
Well, I've been speaking to the former French Foreign Minister, Bernard Kouchner, who was co-founder of the medical aid group Médecins Sans Frontières. And I asked him what he thinks is going to be achieved by a French force going into Central African Republic.
The African forces are already around 3,000 or 2,000 and a half, and we are supposed to separate the people fighting on both sides, the Christian and the Muslim, unfortunately, because this is part of the problem, and second, to re-establish a normal life. Then after we'll see politically if this is possible to organize for the African people, not for the French, to organize election or to restart with a new government something normal. It was impossible not to do anything. We are just there to help. But let me ask you a question, Mr. Journalist. Was it possible to let them die? Was it possible to let them kill each other? Was it possible just to ignore what was going on? As a humanist, let's say humanitarian guy, it was not possible.
Do you see the problem? Do you see the fighting in Central African Republic at the moment? Do you think this has become a religious struggle?
Not only. Of course, poverty is the main problem. But unfortunately, at the bottom of all the war I was witness of, there is also very, very frequently a religious problem.
I wonder, though, if you see a risk in French troops fighting Muslim forces in Central African Republic in support of a Christian majority, and where you think that could lead.
We are just helping the people, and the African will solve, if it is possible, the problem. I know the difficulties, but we cannot stop, and we cannot have values on peace, necessity of interreligious communities living together, because there is a risk. Of course there is a risk in a war. Of course there is a risk in Central Africa.
Bernard Kouchner talking to me earlier. Well, our chief correspondent Alex Thompson joins us live now from Bouar in Central African Republic. So Alex, in a country the size of France, will these troops make a difference where you are?
Well, the style, the elan, the gloss coming from the Élysée Palace looks fantastic tonight, doesn't it? François Hollande saying we're going to act decisively tonight because it's so urgent. Of course it's not like that. The reality is the French knew the resolution would go through in the UN. They had their troops in place. They had their transport troops in place. And what do you know? Bangui Airport, which we've been told has been closed all day for security reasons, suddenly open as I speak. French transport planes arriving through the night to do the job. But as you say, what a job in a country which is actually bigger than France, with just 4.6 million people. Who are they going to keep apart? What is the job? What is the mandate? Who is fighting who? The supposed national army is actually a bunch of the Seleka, as they're known, a bunch of unpaid militias who basically earn their living through looting, rape and pillage. They're supposed to be kept apart from another equally and much more unidentifiable group of local militias, Christian militias, raised against those Muslim Seleka that I've just described. How to do that? The big worry tonight is, yes, the French may establish a degree of control in the capital, in Bangui, perhaps in other areas too, with the African forces as well. Then they simply push the problem out into the bush. There's a lot of bush, there's a lot of problems, there's a lot of chaos.
Thanks, Alex.